Okay, we're going to move to the next stage of our sketching. So this is kind of building on what we've been doing. So 2 point perspective, you're pretty good at that now. I think, using the houses gave you the depth, it gave you the adding and subtracting that I'm looking for, so that we can move on to the next stage. Effectively, what we have to get to is a stage where I can take an orthographic of an object such as this and turn it into a 2 point perspective sketch or an isometric sketch. Now I'm concentrating on 2 point perspective just now to keep things nice and simple, so we're doing the same thing. When you get back to school, we'll cover things like isometric sketching as well, which is slightly different, but it has its own rules. So can we get to this? Can we actually just reproduce this as a 2 point perspective sketch? Well, that's what we're going to do this morning. So if I think about this, we'll start on a simple object like this just now. If I take this simple object here and turn it into a 2 point perspective, effectively I'm looking at each of the different parts here and applying that to my sketch. So I'm not going to do great big sketches here. You can see the size of my A4 sheet here. I'm just going to do a small 2 point perspective so I can get as much on my page as possible. So the first thing we would do is just to create a box first. Now, feedback in terms of that 2 point exercise. Yep, there's some really good, well-drawn stuff there. Majority of it all correct. The only bit, again, where we are struggling a little bit is just remember to do this. Verticals. Vertical lines need to be parallel to each other. So the easiest way is put your ruler there and slide it. I'm going to do the long edge. This is the long edge of the object. So this is the distance from here, going across the way. So here's my long edge, and here's my narrow edge. Look, I'm putting it on here and sliding it. It's important these verticals stay parallel to each other, because if they don't, the box looks a bit odd. Again, from here, I'm not going to draw all the way up to vanishing point. I know it goes up there. And again from here. And again, my line's a little bit darker than yours. Try and keep your lines nice and light. Effectively, I've got the crate now. This is what the object is. And if I was to put my wee red dot on, there's my wee red dot here. So what we learnt before about orthographics, in terms of creating the orthographic, we can now apply that same rule here. So the blue edges you're seeing round the outside is this box, or this part is sitting here. This is what it looks like. There's the dot, there's the dot. So what happens? We go up, along, down, round, up, along, down. So that's all we're really recreating here. I'm going to start at this end here, because this edge here is the one is closest to me as such. So it's going to define the height going back the way. So I'm just going to slide this along, create the first vertical. So that's this edge here. Once I've done that, I can do one of two things. I can create the second vertical here, or I can do the top edge going back the way. So I'm just going to take it to about there to keep it in proportion. That's this edge, and then the final edge is just coming down here. So the final edge came down there. Now, when we look at the side, there's nothing more to add to the side of the tops because nothing's been taken away. But when I look at this edge in here, when I'm looking here now, so if I start at this dot here, when I come in here, if I can physically see that edge coming along here, can't I? So I must replicate that. Look, there's the edge there. That's my point here and here. I must replicate that. So this edge here needs to go back up to one of the vanishing points. And it will only go as far back as this top line here, because I can't see anything more. And effectively, that's that part finished. This one is not the most complex one in the world. And you would go back and you would outline all the edges on this to redraw it. So it's trying to physically looking at the edges of objects and saying, what will I now see, what will I not see? If I move on to something a little bit more complex, I'll just move this one to the side. If I take this block here, so we've still got this element of the middle section being taken away, but this time I've taken away a corner up here, so it comes in the way. So we've got a corner taken away, and I've also got a slope here as well. So that's what we're going to concentrate on today, is looking at this object, because I'm going to give you some photographs of things, blocks like this, and I want you to create 2-point perspective sketches of them before we get to the orthographic stage of it. So here's my block, here's my little red dot. I've not drawn the edges on this one yet, okay? I'm going to leave that one just as we go through it. First thing to do is just to draw my little crate. So again, my vanishing point, my vanishing point. I'll make this one a little bit bigger this time. So again, back to the vanishing point. That went a little bit squiffy, but that's okay for what we're doing. And again, I have got my narrow edge, and I've got my long edge. So again, I'm just creating a crate. Everything's created from a crate. if you get good at this, you can draw it straight off without drawing a crate. But a crate means we keep proportion. It means everything. It can't go outside of the size of this, so it keeps you limited to what you can and can't do. Okay, the easy bit here is just to do this bit again, because we've done that here. So that's where the practice kind of came in before. So again, I'm going to use my leading edge and use proportion. So this is the edge coming in here. I think I've actually come in not far enough there, looking at my block. That edge there, that's actually a lot wider than what that other one was. So I think I'm more about here. And again, I've got the same sort of here. Now, as things go into the distance, this distance here gets a little bit shorter than what we've got. I'm going to do it this way. So I think probably about there. And again, slide this down. And again, we learnt before that this edge here goes back up to here. So I'm quite happy with that. So if you want, if it helps you, you can outline as you go. If you finish a little section of work and you say, right, I'm happy with that, I know that's right. Nothing's changing there now. There you go. And I know that this bottom line's right as well, so let's put that in. Okay, so there's part of that done. The next stage is this little bit up the top here. So I've subtracted material from here. This is like a window, but it's a window or a doorway that goes all the way through the object from the front to the back. And this time, as I'm looking at that, I'll definitely see these two edges here, and I might see some of this edge running back here. So again, proportion-wise, this edge here is on to the right of this edge here, so we need to make sure. So it's going to be about halfway between here and here. So again, it's about halfway between here and here. So I'm going to draw my vertical first. And in terms of the depth that comes down there, it comes down. Here's the top of here, here's there. So again, thinking about the proportion, it's about halfway between here. So we need to think about how far that comes down. Again, this one goes back up to the vanishing point. So there's the little shape itself, which removes the material. So looking at that now, we know that the top edge of that goes all the way from the front to the back. Nothing, it doesn't stop, it goes all the way through. So again, I can take this top edge all the way back to the back edge of the object. Okay. This little edge here, I did say we might see some of this. Well, how do you know to put the line on or not? Well, put your ruler on back to the vanishing point. So there's the vanishing point, there's the edge. And if I can draw the line in, you draw it in. If it's not overlapping something, then I would put it in. So you can see there how it goes along and it stops here. It doesn't go any further back. So that's that top section done. Okay, so fairly simple in terms of just removing the material there and working out what we can and can't see. The next thing is the slope. So I know with the slope, if it was an orthographic, we'd see rectangle and we'd see rectangle there. With the slope, what I need to recognise here is where is the position of the slope. So there's the edge of the slope here. So in relation to this edge here, if I was to draw down here, it's on the inside edge of here. So I'm going to start my slope about here. How far down does the slope come? Well, there's where the slope stops, and if I was to draw right angled across here, you can see that it's above this edge here. So again, it needs to be above this edge here, and if I take this along here, it needs to be somewhere about here, if I was drawing that line back the way. So I've got 2 points on mine, two points here and here. Now this is different. This is where the rule doesn't apply. The rule doesn't apply to parallel because it's not a straight vertical line. It doesn't apply going back to vanishing point because it's an angle on the part itself. So all we're going to do is connect the two dots. So there is the slope. And I'm going to draw in this. If you think about it, if I had my pen, I could go round, I'd be drawing that as my front elevation, isn't it? Okay, what happens with the slope and edge now? Well, it runs all the way from the front of the object to the back of the object. So here's the edge that we'd see if we were looking at our orthographic. It runs all the way to the front to the back. Okay, and there's that rectangular shape that we would see as the left-hand elevation. That's the bottom rectangular shape that we would see. The top edge is here. What does it do? Again, it runs all the way to the back of the object, and this is why we've got the crate, because it tells me where to stop this line. All the way to the front to the back, and it stops. What happened at the front was we connected the 2 points front here and here, and we're going to do the same here. The top and the edge connect. So again, the angle is irrelevant. It's connect the two dots. So you can see there, I've now got that slope in, and I can add in the last line. So that's how we create it, looking at that. And this is where we have to think about, because in future, I'm going to give you a shape, not a block like a physical block, a picture of, an image of, because I'm going to give you some images of them. I would give you something, so we may well have a shape where we have cutouts. So here might be my front elevation. So here's a variation of what I've got there. So my end elevation. Again, with my end elevation, I'll start off my crate. So what edges can I see? This one here is hidden. Go up the way. This one here, I'll see this one physically. This one here, look, the difference in the heights. This one here, from this direction, here, can't see that. Hidden. Top. Okay, so there's the right hand elevation drawn. And in terms of the plan, again, I've just about left myself enough space here. Again, I would put my crate, this is not in proportion, but I just want to show you what we will be doing. So here's this edge here, I'll see this one, straight line, working along. I'm just going to work along the top straight edge here, I'll see this one, working along this edge here, I'll see this one. So that's the slope, there's the rectangle for the slope. Moving along this edge, I'll see this edge. Moving along this edge here, I'll see this edge. So there's the two slopes, there's a little bit in between. Now looking down through it, thinking about this part, can't see it, hidden detail. Moving along this edge, can't see it, but it's physically hidden detail. So it exists, but I can't see it. That's the plan. And that's what you need to do. I'll give you these at one point, or your teacher will give you these at some point. Oh, I managed to miss that one off my screen. Let's do the opposite one while we're here. Because I talked about that, you didn't get to see me draw it. So bottom edge, fine. Okay, this edge here, can't see it, hidden detail. Coming up here, this edge here, can't see it, hidden detail. Okay, coming up here, this edge here, it's above that one, can't see it, hidden detail, top edge. Okay, that's how to create it. So I'll give you something where we'll be taking this and I'll get you to turn that into a 2-point perspective. That's where we're heading. But first off, we'll do some practice on a couple of blocks like this, simple blocks to get you to do a 2-point perspective, nothing more, and then we'll move on to giving you something like this and making this into a 2-point perspective sketch and see how you get on with that. Okay, so that'll be our wee tasks for this week.